Alright everyone, a social media post of a screenshot of a man on TikTok pretending to be a woman has sparked an enormous debate online recently, and I think we should talk about it. So here's the man pretending to be a woman, and the caption on it is,
"It's heartbreaking that as a transgender woman living with PCOS and endometriosis, I cannot get pregnant. I feel like no man will ever truly love me or want to build a family with me."
So look, this man has been doing it for a while. It's obvious to me that he's just baiting you all for attention, but for some reason everybody seems to have got triggered over it. We've just missed a full moon, so that's definitely not it. I wrote about this man online a couple of weeks ago. I got sent this picture and it says,
"Show something that helps with your PCOS as a transgender woman."
I think he's trolling her, honestly. I'm not one of these people who thinks these men actually believe any of the shit they come out with. I think it's a cop-out to say that they're delusional or mentally ill. I just don't believe for 1 second that he even a little bit thinks he's a woman. They're having a laugh. They're taking a piss. They're taking the mick out of you. I think they're all piss takers, which is precisely why people have difficulty discerning on whether or not this is satire or this joke or a troll, is because all of these men are taking the piss. Any man that says he's a woman is taking the piss out of you. Not one of them believes it. Not one man ever believes he's a woman. Even though I think the whole thing's a troll and I think it's ridiculous, I'm going to talk about it anyway because everybody seems to be particularly triggered. But also there's a deeper and more important discussion to have about women's health, and I think some of you out there could use a little bit of information. Not that I'm an expert, but I do happen to be a woman who happens to have PCOS, so this could be useful to talk about. And to be honest, I am absolutely sick to my ovaries of having to explain this to people, so maybe if I say it on a YouTube video it will help because I've put it out there once and I'll never ever have to say this again. So unlikely I'll probably be repeating myself till the end of time, but here we go. So for those of you who don't know, let's have a brief rundown of these conditions. PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a common condition that affects how a woman's ovaries work. I don't know if you know what that means, but it means you have to be an adult human female and you have to have functioning ovaries, okay? 3 main features of PCOS are irregular periods, which means your ovaries do not regularly release eggs. That's called ovulation, okay? Now, men don't have ovaries or produce eggs, so cross that one off. The second symptom, excess androgen. High levels of male hormones in your body, which may cause physical signs such as excess facial or body hair. Now, male hormones is in quotes because we all know that women have estrogen and testosterone and progesterone and all these other hormones in their body anyway. If a man was to have excess testosterone, he wouldn't be a woman. The third symptom, polycystic ovaries. This means your ovaries become enlarged and may contain many fluid-filled sac follicles that surround the egg. When I had my scan and the nurse told me I have PCOS, she said my ovaries looked like they have a ring of pearls around them. It is painful, it is, if you have PCOS. Men don't have ovaries, so they're not going to produce eggs and they're not going to have follicles around the eggs, so they're not going to have this problem. If you have at least 2 of these features, you may be diagnosed with PCOS. Now, I'm speaking from experience. It's notoriously difficult to get a PCOS diagnosis. I spent years on it and I knew I had all the symptoms, and it runs in family as well. What they do is they fobbed me off, and it might be a postcode lottery thing to be honest, but the doctors fobbed me off for years, telling me to have blood tests every 13 days. And eventually I got a different doctor and said, look, what's going on? I think I've got this. These are all the symptoms. They put me for a scan. 10 seconds she was in there doing my internal scan, and she said to me straight away, I can see them. I can see it. Your ovaries are covered in there. And I was like, oh no. Even with a diagnosis for PCOS, people don't really know what to do with you. A lot of the research is saying it's a hormonal issue, blood sugar levels, insulin level, dietary, lifestyle. There's a lot of things you can do to mitigate the symptom, but they say it's incurable. And then other people will claim that it has been cured by becoming pregnant and they can go into remission. The research on this is all over shop, okay? It's the wild west of diseases to have. I think PCOS is serious as well because the side effects of having PCOS could include becoming diabetic, heart disease, cardiovascular issues, stroke, cancer, osteoporosis, all that horrible shit. Not to mention the psychological side effects of a condition like this would include depression, anxiety. It's so sickening that men are claiming to have this, but here we are. It wasn't enough to pretend to be a woman, you've now got to have a woman's disease. The second one is endometriosis. Endometriosis is where cells similar to those in the lining of the womb, uterus, grow in other parts of the body. It can have a big impact on your life, but there are treatments that can help. Now, what annoys me about this already, and this is the NHS as well, it says it's where cells that are similar to those in the lining of the womb, but that's changed because when I first read up on endometriosis and PCOS, I read that it was the lining of the womb, the uterus, and that's why it's called endometriosis, because the definition of the endometrium means the mucous membrane, the lining of the uterus which thickens during the menstrual cycle in preparation for possible implantation of an embryo. To change it from the endometrium, which is what the whole condition's named after, to being, it's just where cells that are similar to the lining of the womb. That has been done intentionally to open the floodgates so that we can include men into this condition. And it's the same with PCOS, because if you look on the NHS page, it will say things like people who can menstruate. Who are these people? Who are these people? They're women. Women and sometimes girls. That's who these people are. Don't be joking with me like this. Grow a spine. Grow up. It's the confusing of the language and opening the floodgates. I don't know why it's important that we include men in these diseases so that they can feel better, because it ain't gonna help. It ain't gonna do nothing. It's disgusting. Yeah, the endometrium is not cells similar to the lining of the womb, okay? It is the lining of the womb. Otherwise, don't call it endometriosis. Endometriosis usually grows in areas around the womb, such as the ovaries and fallopian tube. It can also affect organs such as the bladder and bowel. Symptoms happen when patches of endometriosis, the endometrium, the lining of the womb, break down from your womb lining and bleed during your period but cannot leave your body. So, if a man was to have endometriosis, let's say it's just some cells that are similar to the lining of the womb but not the womb because he doesn't have a womb, in what world is he being affected by bleeding during his period, but the blood cannot leave his body? In what world is this happening? Don't joke with me, mate. You're absolute gherkin. Alright, dickheads, I've only got a handful of these calendars left for 2025, so if you want one, get one now at thefamousartistbirdierose.com. Thefamousartistbirdierose.com. Get your calendar now at thefamousartistbirdierose.com. You might have some symptoms during your period. Men don't have a period, let's remember this, such as severe period pain that stops you from doing your normal activities. Again, men don't have a period, so they're not going to have this symptom. Heavy periods, where you need to change your pads or tampon every 1 to 2 hours. Or you may bleed through your clothes. Well, men don't have a period, so they don't need to worry about heavy bleeding, pads or tampon, except for the ones I've read about on the internet who like to brag on Reddit about how they dig through their neighbours' or their mums and sisters' toilet bin to look for tampons so they can shove them up their bumhole and pretend they're having a period. I don't think that counts though. I don't think that counts as a woman on a period. I've also read about the men who like to get tampons, dip them in ketchup and put them in their pants. We're supposed to believe this has nothing to do with prawns or fetishes. Amazing. Another symptom is pain when you poo or pee. So if a man has pain while he's using the toilet, he might need to see a doctor because it is not typical for a man to experience pain. Women have all different reasons, as you can see, such as endometriosis or PCOS, for having experiences like this. You can have other symptoms at any time in your menstrual cycle, such as pain in your lower tummy and back or pelvic area. Don't worry guys, you don't have a menstrual cycle, so you don't need to be worrying about this. Pain during or after sex, and extreme tiredness or fatigue. You may also have difficulty getting pregnant and have low mood or anxiety. All men have difficulty with that. Endometriosis is commonly diagnosed in women and girls. No, it's only diagnosed in women and girls. This can't be diagnosed in anybody else. Men don't have periods, they don't have cycles, and they don't have a womb lining, a uterus lining for this to be attached to. Endometriosis is commonly diagnosed in women and girls from when their periods start, puberty, through to menopause. It can affect anyone who has periods. Now, I know one of the most idiotic arguments I see online is that people who identify as trans and take drugs such as hormones are going through a second puberty. You know, they're going through the puberty they were really supposed to go to. They get to choose their puberty. That ain't happening. That is not real. Don't listen to those idiots. So no, men, you are not going through a female puberty. Also notice this. Anyone who has periods, this is what I was saying. This is what I was saying earlier. God, these institutions are so spineless. Just say girls and women. No one is going to break down and have a psychological break at reading that men don't have periods. And if they say they're going to do that, they're lying. Men do not have endometriosis, okay? Endometriosis requires an endometrium, which is the lining of the womb to shed during bleeding. Men do not have wombs, men do not have womb lining, they do not have cycles, they do not have menstruation, they do not have female reproductive systems within their beer bellies. Every time I say the words PCOS or endometriosis, and every time I say men don't have this, there's always one weirdo that sends me the link. But there's 16 men in the world that have these growths and tumours, and that's got to be endometriosis. 16 men in the whole entire world who have had these unusual cells which have formed growths or tumours and attachments to some of their organs. These unusual cells are not endometrium, because the endometrium is the lining of the womb. Where would they have got a lining of the womb, and why would it be shedding in them? No, it's not endometriosis. It is not the womb lining. But it does do them a disservice, because I actually think that whatever it is those men have got, which is very rare, unusual condition, should be given its own name and its own research and not be lumped in with women's diseases. And part of me thinks in foil hat time that that has been lumped in for political reason to open the floodgates so that we can say all men have endometriosis. And that's one of the things that's happening now. People are telling me that men get endometriosis, men get PCOS, and it's like, no mate, you haven't got a uterus, you haven't got an ovary, you haven't got any ovaries, you ain't going to have these conditions, don't worry about it, you're a bloke. The way I see it is 10 years ago no one disputed this. Not many people heard of someone with PCOS or endometriosis. You would hear about it and think, oh, that's a period issue, that's a woman's issue. You wouldn't think, oh wow, I wonder how many men have a problem with that. It's just not been a thing until this gender identity came along and took over our culture. The worst bit for me personally is that any of these men at all are being taken seriously in any way whatsoever by any medical institution or medical professional. From the NHS offering these men smear tests to politicians like David Lammy saying that men can grow a cervix, to even Keir Starmer, who said it's not a nice thing to say when you say that only women have a cervix, that it's not right to say that. The argument around women's health, women's bodies and women's conditions is really frustrating. I give up debating it online, honestly. I'm so bored of it. That's why I'm doing this video. Get it all out there once. Say what I need to say. It off. I ain't doing it. I ain't arguing with men about this, and I ain't arguing with women about it. I'm bored of hearing you all go, oh, but what about that one man in a tribe that lives with lions and he's now got a lion paw growing out of his butt cheek? Doesn't that mean he's a lion? Do you know what? You weirdo, are going on mute. I ain't reading your shit no more. That's what the mute button's for. Men, if you miss your period, check your balls to make sure you're definitely not pregnant. Sometimes periods get stuck in the testicles.